All right, hey everybody. So it's been just a little while since my last video because there's been a lot going on in my life, frankly, the past couple weeks. So anyway, so figured I'd get back into making some videos here. So I wanted to review something I've had for just a little while now, and that's this little gizmo right here. You might be thinking to yourself, wow, that's just a stock, but there's more to it. Those who know that this is one of the AR7 survival rifle types. This one was made by Henry, so it's a more recent version. And I'll show you exactly how this thing works. So it does come like this in the stock, but open up the back here. I'll take this little butt cap off, right? And you have all the internals and all the guts right there in the stock. So you got your barrel here with the retention ring, and you got your receiver proper right here. So this piece right here is the receiver. And then you can also store up to 2 or 3 magazines, depending on how you configure it here in the stock. So this is the stock completely empty. As you can see, it's got cavities for all that stuff here in the back. And here are the little 8-round magazines that it comes with. So I will put this together here. So as you can see, there's a big thumb screw here at the bottom that threads into the recess here on the receiver. So we'll put that in the stock here and just twist that up. So you can engage there. And put this together here. Thumb screw is a little long, kind of has to be. Okay, now we can put the barrel on. And the way this works is there's a little notch here in the top of the ring, receiver ring, and there is a peg right there on the receiver, or not the receiver, the bolt, or not, the barrel, sorry. I'll get there eventually. Yeah, so these two just made up just like that, and you got to push on it just a little bit because it does actually sit a little on the bolt face itself. So you can see right here, if I push it back just a tiny bit, so I can get the barrel retention ring threaded on the receiver here. And as you can see, this is a very quick process, especially if you've done it a few times. And, you know, put your butt cap back on so you don't lose it. Insert your 8-round magazine here. And there you go. You have your now assembled AR7 rifle. Of course, this thing is chambered in 22. And it's pretty cool, honestly. I mean, this is a very old design, actually, from way back in the day, Armalite days. And this design was passed down between multiple companies that have made it in the past. Armalite, Charter Arms being some of the more notable examples, with Henry being the most recent and one of the higher quality ones, I would say. I've handled and seen a few AR7 examples in the past, including an original Armalite one and a Charter Arms one. And to be honest, they were kind of rough around the edges. Kind of older technology, you know, especially the original material they used to make the stocks out of was kind of like a brittle plastic that didn't quite hold up over time. So this is a different kind of plastic, and you can read that all on the Wikipedia article itself. But yeah, this is a almost as simple as you can get survival type rifle, you know, because you can fit all of this into the stock here, which minimizes the space required. And this stock will actually float on water for a small amount of time with all the components in it. Obviously, it will not float like this in this configuration, but once you have all the pieces in here, it will float for a small amount of time. So, yeah, chambered in 22, and very, very rudimentary, very basic. So, you got your safety lever right here, and safe is to the rear, so when you want to take it off safe, you push forward. So, kind of natural feeling, actually. So they thought a little bit about that. The bolt handle, as you can see, extends out, but you can also push it in, so that way it's, well, nice and retained. You can see, if I push it down there, see? Stays in there. This is a simple blowback design, obviously. It's got 2 recoil springs that sit inside here. I'm not going to take the bolt out in interest of time and you know, complexity with this. This really is not a rifle that you will go to the range and put 500, 600 rounds through in one sitting. You probably shouldn't do that because it's going to get pretty nasty here in the action. You're probably going to have some issues there. But The small amount that I've shot this rifle, it's proven to be very reliable. I've had no issues with it. Of course, with the usual caveats of a 22 LR direct blowback semi-automatic. Of course, all the difficulties that come with that. Not using high velocity enough ammo to cycle the action properly. The feeding of the magazines can be a little problematic sometimes, especially with the older ones. My magazines I've had no issues with, but of course, all of the things that go into 22 semi-auto reliability also, of course, affect this rifle. So for sights, you have really basic. You have a plastic orange insert here on the front ramp, and then on the back, you have your very small aperture here. I'm going to hit the camera if I get any closer, but you have a small aperture here, and there's a screw and a plate here as well that if you unscrew this, you can actually flip the aperture the other way, and you can get a larger or smaller aperture as you see fit. So the sight picture is, very basic, of course. It's functional. If you've used aperture for sights before, it's functional. Is this going to be any kind of target rifle? No, absolutely not. The trigger is functional. It's just okay. Accuracy potential that I've gotten out of this, 25 yards I can get. If I'm really like rested up on a bench or something supported, I can get 1 to 2 inch groups at 25. At 50 yards, I'm getting anywhere from 3 to 4 inch groups on average. So perfectly acceptable for its role as a survival rifle, but it's definitely not going to be like a really nice tuned up 1022 for that matter. So perfectly adequate for what it's designed to be and do, right? Which is all you can really ask for from this thing, because that's all it was meant to be. The barrel is interesting because it is a sleeved design. So if you look here, you can see the metal ring in there. That's the actual barrel itself. Everything else here on the outside is a polymer sleeve that fits over the barrel. That helps save weight and also keeps the actual steel as well from exposure to the elements, basically. You could argue that it's not quite as durable or accurate or as nice of a barrel because it is sleeved and small. It's not going to hold up to high volumes of fire, but that's really not what this thing was designed to do. So I don't really view that as a flaw necessarily. The rail up here, I believe, is a 3/8 inch dovetail, so you can put your kind of Weaver style rail on here if you really want to. I haven't really found the need to do that, and maybe someday I will, just to kind of put a red dot on here for fun. But of course, when you do that, you do sacrifice the ability to store everything here in the stock, which I think is one of the big selling points of the rifle. So, I don't really see much reason to do that because you're kind of getting rid of one of the main points of why you would even buy this gun in the first place, aside from cool factor. Now, the stock is also interesting because you can kind of tell it's favored to one side. So you can see right here, if I hold it dead on like this, obviously there's a much larger portion of the stock on this side, and that is intentional because you are going to need a way to fit the entire length of the barrel down this thing, so it has to be kind of favored to one side. Now you might think, okay, that might provide some ergonomic issues for getting your hand here around the stock, but I've found it actually really doesn't matter. If I'm shooting it left-handed or if I'm shooting it right-handed, everything actually works out pretty darn well. So even though it looks funky and it kind of feels a little weird, functionally it has no difference to me, and I shoot both hands. So interesting magazine release as well. It is inside the trigger guard here. So you press this serrated lever forward and it drops the mag right out. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's basic rundown of the features of this thing. It's very rudimentary, very basic, but that's of course what it was designed to be. Not meant to be your high volume 1022 super duper target rifle. So but yeah, this thing weighs hardly anything, which is also part of the point, I would imagine, because if you're in a survival situation, you might be on an aircraft, which of course, if you know anything about aircraft, weight is everything. So if you can shave a few extra ounces, pounds off of your weight, it definitely helps. So in some cases, in some areas, depending on your situation, it might also be critical, in fact, for those weight savings. So yeah, I've put less than 1,000 rounds, so there's maybe a couple hundred, but it has consistently been a very fun gun to shoot. Actually, a very nice plinker, and it definitely gets a lot of attention at the range because when I pull up with just this piece of stock, people are like, what do you have just a stock for? And I'm like, oh well, let me show you. And then I start assembling this thing, and they're all looking at it like this is some kind of space age, super cool, like never seen that before kind of weapon. And it's cool. It's cool to talk about it and say, hey, this was a concept back in the day that they're still making rifles like this. Kind of reminds me of the old Marlin Papoose, your Ruger 1022 takedown models, the Chiappa Little Badgers and things like that. Those style of rifles that are takedowns and ultra minimalist style kind of guns. I just think they're cool because me being an aircrew member myself, of course, survival equipment is on the back of my mind when I'm flying all the time, especially in hostile environments, shall we say. And while we didn't, Air Force didn't really carry these in their planes, it's still a pretty cool piece, and not something that I would say is far removed from a type of survival weapon that maybe could have been issued, if they ever did adopt this. I believe the Israeli Air Force did actually adopt these for some of their fighter pilots, so it's got some military pedigree from somewhere. But I do not believe our actual Air Force used these on any of our aircraft as a standard issue type thing. But I could very easily see it as something like that. So, yeah, shooting experience, mild recoil. It kind of gets a little bit getting used to like where do you put your support hand? Do you put it back here? Do you put it up here? Do you hold the barrel? Probably not. I wouldn't hold the barrel because that will throw your shots off quite a bit. I found my best hold is kind of hold it up here, but of course keeping your fingers clear of the bolt itself because it does reciprocate, along with the bolt handle. It will reciprocate. So if you're trying to hold it like this, of course you're going to block the ejection port, and your hand's going to get caught by the bolt there. So a bit of a self-correcting issue. But yeah, trigger's okay, it's serviceable. Other than that, it's if you don't expect this to be a super duper ultra target rifle, I think you'll be pretty pleased with it, to be honest. I mean, I've had my fun with it. I definitely have. But even with that, there is a surprising amount of aftermarket available for these things. I know there's a guy who makes his own designs. I think it's Dan Haga or Haga Defense. I'll try to get some links down in the description for his stuff. He makes a lot of really neat accessories and add-ons to really kind of trick out your AR7 and make it something totally not what it was originally designed to be. I've seen things like he's got a whole module that goes back here that you can add an AR buffer tube, an AR pistol grip, and you can add like a regular size pick rail on top of here to get some totally crazy, space blaster looking designs that, you put a regular pistol grip on an AR stock here and have something really just, I mean, it looks cool, but practically speaking, it's got, no use anymore as a survival rifle. It's just cool, and sometimes that's okay, I do know there's a company out there that does make aftermarket barrels for these, including ones that do not have a front sight. There also is a company out there that makes an integrally suppressed barrel for these as well. That's super cool, and I imagine that would make quite like your super secret agent fantasy gun really come to fruition. I think this would be an excellent suppressor platform. As well, I think this rifle was also featured in a James Bond movie. I think he shot a helicopter with it. I don't know which movie exactly it is, but I believe he shot down a helicopter with with one of these rifles. So it definitely has a secret agent pedigree, if you want to think of that. So yeah, considering how long these type of AR7s have been around, they have a surprising amount of aftermarket, which is pretty cool. I like to see that. It's pretty neat. Another version I've seen from Charter Arms is the Explorer versions, which basically takes the stock off here and just adds a straight kind of broom handle Mauser pistol grip option with like an 8-inch barrel. I think they made 6-inch barrels as well, but a pistol barrel basically. So imagine like half the length here and a pistol grip instead of a stock. Same 8-round magazine, and they made it like a little pistol. I really do want to get one of those one of these days because it just looks freaking cool. Looks like some Han Solo type blaster, Um, Practically speaking, I don't think they're very well made, the Charter Arms ones, and they're not going to be super reliable or practical for anything really, other than being cool and maybe a plinker. But it's still just kind of cool to see what the companies have done with these and kind of explored little, no pun intended. They've explored some different forms of this very very basic rifle. So. I like it a lot, and for what I paid for, I mean, almost nothing for one of these things brand new. So I have no idea what they're going for now, but for the price I bought it for at the time, it was very reasonable. So I was quite happy to get one of these and finally experience it, because I'm sure we've all seen somewhere in some survival magazine, get AR7 survival rifle, it floats on water, and all that stuff. So. But yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't have a last round bolt hold open. But I mean, what do you expect for an ultra minimalist rifle like this? Yeah, you'll know when you're empty. So, but yeah, it's a nice little gun, honestly, and I think Henry did a really really good job making this and remaking it. If you want to call it that. And yeah, I really like it. So for what it is and what I paid for, this is a really honestly a nice fun gun. And I've seen more than one kid, young kid being taught how to shoot with one of these things from, father figure type. I would personally go with a 1022 myself, but honestly, this isn't a bad choice either, because it doesn't weigh anything. It's not intimidating looking at all. It's very very simple to operate. It's just really really basic, and it does that well. So anyway, I thought I would bring this cool little piece to you guys and kind of let you know my thoughts on it. So yeah, if you're ever on the fence about getting one, I would recommend it for sure. But I would definitely stick with the Henrys. Don't buy the old ones. Don't buy the Charter Arms or the original Armalites unless you're like a collector type and you like the cool pattern that they're in and all that stuff. But in terms of functionality and everything else, accuracy, quality, and all that, the Henrys I think really are the best that have come out of AR7s. So yeah, kudos to Henry. Yet again, another great product. I love Henry stuff. I mean, everything I've used from them has been great, and this is no exception. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. And yeah, hope you guys like this little cool rifle, and we'll see you next time.